Life's got this weird way of testing you when you least expect it. My name's Karen Reynolds, 59 back then, almost 60 now, and I was staring at what could have been the end of my world. 2 decades on my ranch, busting my ass from sunrise to sunset, all to keep my land, my family's legacy intact. And let me tell ya, it wasn't just dirt and trees. It was history, sweat, tears. It was me. I woke up one morning, coffee in hand, just minding my own business, pruning the peach trees like I did every damn April. The sun was barely up. The air smelled like wet earth and possibilities, you know? That's when I heard a truck roll up slow, like it was afraid of what it was about to face. I peeked through the orchard. Yep, it was Ethan, my son. But something was off. Dude looked thin, worn out, like life had beaten him down. His usually cocky swagger was gone. It was like he'd aged 5 years overnight. I didn't say nothing, just kept on trimming. He parked, got out, and walked toward me. I finally said, "Hey, what's up, Ethan?" He stopped a few feet away, took a deep breath. "Mom, can I talk?" "You're talking already," I muttered, smirking slightly. "I mean, can I sit?" I pointed to the old wooden bench under the oak, the one I'd carved my initials into, back when he was a kid, just a little punk running around barefoot. He sat down slowly, stared at his hands. Calloused hands now. I messed up. Everything. Linda, she never loved me. Not really. She only wanted your money, your land, your ranch, your life. I didn't see it back then. I was stupid, naive, blind. And I hurt you. Mom, I hurt you real bad. I felt that punch in my chest, that heavy gut punch feeling you get when reality hits hard. I'd known it deep down. But hearing him say it, damn. He laughed bitterly, like he was laughing at himself. I lost it all, Mom. The business, the money, hell, even Linda's out. She's divorcing me. Said I'm worthless. A loser. Said she deserves better. And I lost the most important thing. I lost you. Tears were streaming down his face. Big, ugly ones. My boy, my baby. Broken. I'm sorry, Mom. I was a terrible son. I tried to take what was yours. And now I get it. Why you fought so damn hard to protect everything. Not just the land. Not just the money. Your life. Your dignity. Your whole damn story. We sat there. Me staring at the horizon, at the mountains, at the fields I'd poured my heart into for decades. My peaches, my soil, my life. "Do you forgive me?" he asked, voice cracked like old leather. I looked at him, the same boy I'd held in my arms, fed, kissed, loved with all I had. I don't know, Ethan. I don't know if I can. He got up about to leave, but I added, "But I also don't know if I can't." He froze. That's all he needed. Time would tell. Actions, not words. He nodded, walked away slowly, leaving me there on that bench, under that tree, feeling complete, like I'd done the right thing. Saying no, defending my life, wasn't selfish. It wasn't wrong. It was survival. That afternoon, I made coffee, sat back, watched my ranch. I felt the first little stir of peace in a long time. My son might have lost his way, but I hadn't. My land, my dignity, my voice, they were mine. Months went by. Life. Life has a funny way of dealing with folks. You don't need to chase karma. It comes to you. Ethan's ex-wife, Linda, went out chasing riches, leaving debts, lies, and chaos behind. Ethan had to scramble. Delivery gigs, bartending, small jobs just to get by. Humbling, painful, necessary. And me? I kept my life simple. My ranch, my routines, my pride intact. My boundaries weren't crossed. My history wasn't erased, and my story wasn't stolen. I realized something crucial. Life doesn't just take, it balances. It strips away the fake, the rotten, the selfish, and what's left is real, hard-earned, true, mine. I was alone, yeah. No husband, no family drama beyond my son's lessons. But I wasn't lonely. I had my land, my sunrise, the smell of coffee in the morning, the crunch of leaves under my boots. I had me, and for the first time I understood. Saying no doesn't make you bad. Defending your boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you human, strong, alive. If my story reaches even one woman out there, one girl fighting for her life, her dignity, her peace, I hope she sees what I saw. You deserve to stand up. You deserve to fight back. And no one, not your son, not your husband, not anyone, can take that away from you. Life doesn't give you a warning before hitting you hard. After that April afternoon under the oak tree, I knew things were changing, not just for Ethan, but for me. For the first time in years, I felt that weird mix of fear and freedom. Fear, 'cause my family was fractured, and freedom, 'cause I realized I was the only one keeping my peace alive. Ethan came by, yeah, but not like before. No demands, no brash, give me this or help me out. Now he came quietly, humbly, carrying the weight of his mistakes like a backpack full of bricks. The dude looked smaller somehow, like life had trimmed all the bullshit off him. Delivery shifts, working odd jobs, hustling just to survive. He told me everything eventually. Bartending gigs, helping at hardware stores, hauling boxes, anything to pay off the mess he'd gotten himself into. I listened. I didn't judge. I just sipped my coffee, watched him struggle, and realized something crazy. He was learning the hard way. But he was learning. And damn, that's life, ain't it? Lessons hit hard. Some break you, some build you. Meanwhile, Linda. Oh, sweet Linda. The woman who once smiled at my table, pretending to love Ethan, but really eyeballing my ranch and my life. Life's funny, man. Linda chased her dreams, all shiny and Instagram ready, thinking she could escape consequences. She didn't, not even close. Turns out, that businessman she left Ethan for, married. Yeah, straight up scandal. Wife found out, court drama, fights, big mess. And Linda? She ended up alone, broke, embarrassed. No glam, no parties, no social media highlight reels. Just her, flat broke, wandering a public hospital hall, depending on strangers for care. Funny how karma works sometimes, ain't it? Ethan? He started showing up more often, slowly rebuilding his life, brick by brick. No shortcuts, no scams, no more chasing someone else's wealth or trying to grab what wasn't his. The dude was sweating, hustling, falling flat, getting back up. And through it all, he kept coming back to me, not for handouts, not for approval, just presence. A son realizing he had something worth more than cash or status. A mom who stood her ground. I kept tending the ranch, working the fields, pruning peach trees, planting crops, and fixing fences. Life was simple, but it had flavor again. I had mornings where the sun hit my porch just right, coffee steaming in my mug, wind in my hair, birds chirping. And I thought, damn, this is real peace, not fake, not borrowed from someone else's drama. Mine. And boy, did people start noticing. Neighbors, folks in town, even old friends who had doubted me. They'd say things like, "Karen, I thought you'd lose it all." I'd smile, shrug, and keep moving. Nah, everything that matters stayed. Everything that's rotten left. Ethan, he learned the hard way, but he came to understand boundaries too. He'd say, "Mom, I get it now. I shouldn't have let her mess with you. I shouldn't have been so blind." And I'd nod, just letting him speak, letting him feel the weight of his mistakes, teaching him, yeah, but not at the cost of losing myself. That was the line I refused to cross. There were nights, though, when I felt it, the loneliness creeping in. No husband, no kids hanging around constantly, no laughter echoing from the porch. But then I'd look at my land, at the peach trees I planted with my own hands, at the sunsets painting the mountains in pinks and oranges, and I'd remember, this is my life, my choice, my rules, my dignity. And that beat any fake company or hollow hugs I could have had. Life also taught me patience, karma, balance, consequence. It doesn't rush. It doesn't announce itself. But it comes. Linda's fall, Ethan's struggle, my quiet peace, it all fit together, like pieces in a puzzle. You can't force the picture. You just gotta play your part and watch it unfold. I started seeing my friends more, too. Betty, my bestie since forever, came around often. We laughed, shared gossip, talked about everything from town news to life's weird twists. And Ray and Joe, the guys who helped me around the ranch for years, stayed loyal. No drama, no greed. Just good people. Real people. And me? I started taking care of myself. Not in a selfish way. Nah. In a survival way. Long walks in the orchard, writing in my journal, remembering why I fought so hard to defend my life. Cooking meals I loved. Listening to music I hadn't touched in years. Little joys that built a fortress of peace around me. Sometimes, Ethan would show up just to drink coffee, help with a fence, or sit in silence on the porch. No awkward conversations, no pressure, just a small connection, thin as a thread, but alive. That thread was enough. That thread said, we survived. We're still here. And I realized something else. People gonna come, people gonna go. Some leave broken, some leave bitter, some leave lessons behind. But you gotta stand solid, like oak roots digging deep. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving in a slow, quiet way. One December evening, I sat on my porch, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. The air smelled like wet soil and wood smoke, birds chirping their evening songs. I thought about the year, the chaos, the heartbreak, the lessons. And I understood. Everything I lost that mattered, I didn't need. Everything I gained, I earned. Life had stripped the fake, the greedy, the selfish. It left me, me. And man, I liked her. I liked her a lot. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat back in my rocking chair, and whispered to the wind, "This ranch, my life, my story, nobody's taking it from me." And from that moment, I knew the fight wasn't over. Not for me, not for Ethan, not for anyone who thought they could steal what was ours. But now, the fight was different. It wasn't out of anger. It wasn't out of fear. It was out of love. For my land, for my peace, for myself. Because here's the truth, folks. You can lose everything to the wrong people. But if you hold your dignity, your soul, your life, you never really lose. Life has a funny way of teaching lessons when you least expect them. After Ethan started showing up more, quietly, humbly, I realized something important. The boy wasn't just facing consequences. He was learning them. He worked hard now, doing jobs he never imagined before. Delivery shifts, stocking shelves, helping at hardware stores, whatever he could grab to make ends meet. And slowly, I watched him become a man who respected the grind. A man who understood that nothing worth having comes without effort. I sat on the porch one afternoon, watching him repair the old fence along the eastern field. Sweat ran down his forehead, hands rough and calloused. He looked up, saw me watching, and gave a small nod. That nod wasn't just acknowledgement. It was understanding. He knew I saw him, really saw him, and maybe for the first time in his life, he felt pride without needing praise. Meanwhile, Linda, oh Linda, life had not been kind. That man she left Ethan for, married, like I had said she would never know the truth until it hit hard. Court battles, scandals, fights, the kind that make headlines in the small-town papers. And Linda, broke, alone, stripped of her so-called glamour. She ended up in a public hospital bed, sharing space with strangers. You can't force someone to grow up, to understand the value of honesty, hard work, or respect. They have to live it, fail at it, and eventually rise above it. And me, I was finally finding my rhythm. My ranch, my fields, my routines, they kept me grounded. The orchard needed care. The fences needed fixing. The house needed attention. And I threw myself into each task like it was therapy. Some days were quiet. Some were filled with the small joys I had forgotten existed. Birds singing, the scent of fresh coffee, sunsets that painted the mountains in gold and purple. Those simple moments became my armor against loneliness. Ethan learned about boundaries too. He would sit on the porch, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, saying things like, "Mom, I get it now. I shouldn't have let her take advantage of you. I shouldn't have ignored the truth." And I'd listen, quietly letting him speak, letting him feel the weight of his mistakes without trying to fix them for him. That was part of growing up, part of learning that life doesn't hand out do-overs. Sometimes I'd see Linda in town, a shadow of the woman she once was. No stylish outfits, no bright smiles, just someone trying to survive. I didn't feel pity, but I didn't feel satisfaction either. I just observed, knowing life had balanced the scales. The people who thought they could take advantage of me, of my family, of my land, they learned the hard way that shortcuts only last so long. I also leaned on old friends. Betty stopped by often, always ready with a kind word or a story to make me laugh. Ray and Joe, the guys who had helped me keep the ranch running for years, stayed loyal and honest. Seeing them reminded me that not everyone out there is after your money or your land. Some people just care, and those are the ones worth holding on to. By the end of the year, Ethan had started holding on to his life differently. He wasn't begging for approval or searching for shortcuts anymore. Instead, he came to the ranch, not demanding anything, but ready to help, to listen, to be present. Those visits, small as they were, became a thread connecting us after everything we had endured. Thin, fragile, but real. I had nights where loneliness crept in, sure. No husband, no grandchildren filling the porch with laughter, no familiar chaos of a full house. But then I'd look at the land, the orchard, the trees I had planted and cared for with my own hands, and I knew I had everything that truly mattered. This was my life, my rules, my peace, my dignity, and nothing anyone could do would take that away. Life had a way of stripping the fake people away, leaving the real ones. And through that process, I started to truly appreciate the power of boundaries. Saying no was no longer a battle with guilt. It was survival. Protecting my home, my land, and myself was not selfish. It was necessary. And I saw Ethan learning the same lesson in his own way. Respect comes from action, not words. Work earns trust, not shortcuts. And integrity is the foundation of everything that matters. By December, the town had stopped buzzing with rumors. Linda's story faded from people's conversations. Ethan's quiet growth became his own story. And I finally started seeing the beauty in my solitude. Alone, yes. Lonely, sometimes. But alive, strong, and free. I spent evenings on the porch, sipping coffee, listening to the wind. It was in those quiet moments I understood. Everything I lost that truly mattered, I hadn't needed. And everything I had gained, strength, peace, dignity, I had earned. Life had taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. Pain, heartbreak, betrayal. They had all carved the path to the woman I had become. Ethan would come around, sometimes once a month, sometimes once every 2 months. He no longer asked for favors. He didn't need to. He just brought coffee, helped with small tasks, and sat quietly. That small connection, thin as it was, mattered more than any grand gesture. It reminded me that even after heartbreak, even after betrayal, people can rebuild, relationships can heal, and life can find balance again. I thought about the past, the struggles, and I realized fighting for what's yours is never wrong. Defending your peace is never selfish. Saying no when it matters is a lesson in self-respect. And sometimes the greatest victories come not from revenge or winning over others, but from surviving, standing tall, and refusing to let anyone steal your soul. The new year came quietly, without fireworks or big resolutions. The ranch stayed the same, fields still stretching wide, the barn roof patched where it leaked, the orchard stubbornly alive in its own rhythm. But something inside me had changed. The storms of the past years had passed, and I finally felt steady, like I could breathe without holding my chest. Peace wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud. It was sitting on the porch at dawn, coffee steaming, watching the sun hit the peaks of the mountains. Ethan came more often now, mostly on weekends. No fanfare, no dramatic apologies, no reminders of the mess he had made. He showed up because he wanted to, because he had learned, slowly, painfully, that life isn't about taking, it's about earning. He'd help me in the barn, repair fences, fix the leaky roof, pull weeds from the orchard, anything that needed hands. And in those moments, I saw a young man learning humility, learning respect, learning the difference between quick wins and real life. One afternoon, we were fixing a broken gate near the west pasture. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, hands rough, scarred from work he hadn't done before. I leaned against the post, watching him. "You know," I said, "this land, it teaches you patience. You can't rush it, can't cheat it, can't take shortcuts. Same goes for life." He looked up at me, nodding. "Yeah, I get it now. I wish I'd figured it out sooner." "Yeah," I said quietly, "but you're figuring it out now, and that's what counts. Better late than never." Linda, her shadow kept lingering in my thoughts. Word had reached me that she was still in that hospital, struggling, alone. The glamour she flaunted? Gone. The wealth she chased? Vanished. People who once laughed at her ambitions now ignored her. Her own family refused to take her back, leaving her to face the consequences of her choices. And while part of me felt a small sense of justice, I refused to take pleasure in her suffering. Life had handled it. I didn't need to gloat. Watching her downfall didn't heal old wounds. It just reminded me why I had drawn the line. Ethan never gloated either. He never brought up Linda unless it was necessary. Instead, he focused on rebuilding himself. No more shortcuts, no more schemes, no more pretending. He took up a job at a local small accounting firm, the kind of work that paid modestly but honestly. He struggled with bills, yes, sometimes coming home tired and frustrated. But he did it himself, without handouts or manipulation. I saw his pride grow, not the fake pride that comes from wealth or lies, but the quiet pride of knowing he could stand on his own. I noticed subtle changes in him that made my heart swell quietly. The arrogance that had once filled his gaze was gone. In its place was reflection, thoughtfulness, a kind of patient strength that comes only from learning through hardship. Watching him now, I realized parenting isn't about keeping them from falling. It's about letting them fall and learning to pick themselves up. And Ethan was finally learning. One evening, we sat on the porch together after a long day of work, the air cool and crisp, stars starting to peek through the darkening sky. We didn't talk much. Sometimes silence says more than words. I poured us both a cup of coffee, and we sat shoulder to shoulder, just being. No judgment, no expectations, just life unfolding, quietly but honestly. "You know, Mom," Ethan said finally, staring at his hands, calloused and strong. I was scared. I thought I could make it all happen fast. Get rich, get approval, get everything. And I lost almost everything that mattered. I lost you. I lost myself. I get now, none of it matters if you don't do the work, if you don't respect people, if you don't respect yourself. I smiled softly. That's the hardest lesson. Some people never learn it. You're lucky, Ethan. Not everyone gets that second chance, even when life hands it to them. He looked at me, eyes wet. Mom, I want to do right by you, by the ranch, by myself. No shortcuts, just honest work. And that was enough. That was all I needed. Redemption doesn't come in fireworks or grand gestures. It comes in quiet commitment, in showing up, in choosing integrity every single day. Meanwhile, life at the ranch had settled into its own rhythm. Betty kept visiting, bringing warmth and laughter into my home. Ray and Joe remained loyal, fixing, helping, laughing. I had discovered the simple joy of watching the sunrise, of tending to the orchard, of being fully present. My land, my history, my memories, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. And so was I. Linda's absence in my life was finally complete. She no longer mattered. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. My energy wasn't for her anymore. It was for me, my land, my life, and my son. And that focus gave me strength I hadn't known I still had. I also learned something else. Humility doesn't diminish power. In fact, it strengthens it. Ethan had learned humility, and in turn, our bond grew stronger. We no longer needed the grand gestures, the dramatic apologies, or the guilt. We simply had each other, a quiet understanding, and a slow, steady rebuilding of trust. By the time spring rolled around, I could see Ethan truly changed. He worked with integrity, spoke with respect, and carried himself with quiet confidence. Not the flashy, entitled confidence of his youth, but a real, earned kind of pride. And I had finally stopped worrying about the past. The betrayal, the fights, the sleepless nights, they were all behind me. What mattered now was the life I had built and the person I had become. Sometimes I would catch myself laughing softly at the memory of the chaos, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights. Not just survived, I had thrived. I had protected my dignity, defended my land, and raised my son, imperfectly but honestly. Life had tested me, and I had passed. As Ethan left one evening, waving goodbye from the gate after a long day of work, I stood on the porch, watching him walk down the path. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the orchard quiet, the land peaceful. And I knew, deep in my bones, that we were both finally on the right path. I had learned that some lessons take years, some heartbreaks last a lifetime, but growth, real growth, can't be rushed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. By spring, the ranch was waking up from its winter sleep. The trees were blooming, the air smelled like fresh earth and pollen, and even the stubborn weeds were starting to obey, reluctantly. It was like life itself had taken a deep breath and was ready to start over, just like Ethan and me. Ethan had taken on more responsibility. He wasn't just showing up. He was managing parts of the ranch, helping with bookkeeping, keeping track of repairs, making sure the orchard got the care it needed. The kid who once thought he could charm his way through life with lies and charm was gone. In his place was a young man learning that hard work isn't punishment, it's freedom. I remember one morning, we were up at dawn, coffee in hand, watching the first light hit the peach trees. "Mom," Ethan said, stretching his arms, "I used to think being smart meant outsmarting people. Now I get it. It's about being smart with yourself, knowing your worth, respecting what you got, treating people right, keeping promises. That's real smart." I smiled. That was exactly what I had been trying to teach him all those years. "You're catching on," I said, pouring him another cup. "Takes time, but you're here now. That's what matters." And he was here, fully present, fully accountable. No shortcuts, no excuses. I could see the pride in his eyes, not the fake pride of someone who thinks wealth defines him, but the quiet, steady pride of someone who's finally learning to stand on his own. Meanwhile, word had spread quietly through town about Linda. People had stopped whispering at first, but eventually, the stories became common knowledge. She had left the hospital, barely able to work, and was bouncing between temporary jobs. The designer dreams, gone. The city life she flaunted on Instagram, dead. She was broke, exhausted, and alone. And no one cared, not even the friends she once flaunted. I won't lie, I didn't feel joy at her suffering. That's petty. I felt balance. Life had a way of collecting what's owed, and I had no hand in it. My focus wasn't revenge. It was survival, growth, and peace. And watching Ethan rebuild himself reminded me why I had drawn the lines so firmly back then. The days passed quietly, each one filled with small victories. I planted new trees in the orchard with Ethan's help, repaired fences, cleaned out the barn, and even managed to fix the roof without calling Ray. Those little wins were mine. The ranch was mine. My history, my blood, my sweat, it all belonged to me, untouched. Ethan and I started having long talks on the porch at night. The kind of conversations where words weren't rushed, where confessions didn't need drama. He'd talk about his failures, his regrets, the mistakes he made with Linda. I'd talk about my fears, my loneliness, the nights I spent questioning if I did the right thing. And somehow, in those talks, we rebuilt more than trust. We rebuilt connection. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in oranges and purples, Ethan said something that made me pause. "Mom, I've been thinking about the future. Not just mine, ours. This ranch, this land. I want to help keep it. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to honor what you've built. I want to learn everything you know. And I want to make sure it stays ours. Honestly, respectfully, like it should be." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I just nodded. That's all I ever wanted. Not a savior, not someone to inherit it blindly, just someone who understands its value. Someone who knows that land, family, and respect can't be bought. The ranch had become more than land. It was a teacher, a witness, a reminder of resilience. Every sunrise reminded me of battles fought and won. Every sunset whispered that peace was possible, even after chaos. And Ethan, he had become my partner in that peace, not in the romantic sense, God forbid, but in the sense of shared responsibility, shared respect, shared life. The bond between a mother and son, doesn't always need perfection. It needs honesty, effort, and love. Linda, she faded from my thoughts more and more. Occasional rumors reached me. She was in another state now, trying to survive, battling illness, still alone. But I didn't chase her. She was a chapter that ended. My energy wasn't for her anymore. It was for me, the ranch, and Ethan. And honestly, that clarity made everything lighter. By summer, life at the ranch felt steady, almost serene. Ethan had started his own little savings, planning for his future, and even talked about maybe buying a small plot nearby to start his own project. Not because he wanted to leave me behind, but because he finally understood the value of building something with your own hands, something you can call yours. We also started helping neighbors more, quietly. Fixing a fence for someone in need, lending a hand with harvests, sharing some produce from the orchard. Not for recognition, not for praise, just because it felt right. It reminded me that life isn't just about surviving or protecting what's yours. It's about leaving space for goodness, for community, for respect. One late afternoon, Ethan and I were sitting on the porch after a long day. The air warm, crickets starting their chorus. "Mom," he said, taking a sip of coffee, "I'm grateful. Not just for the ranch, for you, for standing up when it mattered, for teaching me what's real, for never giving in." I laughed softly. "You had to learn some things the hard way, and you did. That's enough. That's all any of us can do. Learn, survive, grow, and maybe teach someone else along the way." He nodded. Looking at the mountains, the orchard, the fields, I get it now. And I'll make sure it lasts. I'll honor it. I'll honor you. And in that moment, I realized life had shifted. The weight of the past, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, they were still there, but they no longer controlled me. The ranch, my land, my dignity, my son, they were thriving. And that was worth more than all the money, all the schemes, all the empty promises that had tried to take it away. Sometimes peace doesn't come as a flood of happiness. Sometimes it comes quietly, in small victories, in honest work, in steady mornings and calm nights. And I had it now, in full. I leaned back, taking in the scene, the orchard glowing in the golden light, Ethan's laughter echoing softly as he fixed a fence, the mountains standing strong in the distance. And I knew we weren't perfect. Life wasn't perfect. But we were real. We were present, and we were finally free. By fall. The ranch had transformed into something almost magical. The orchard was alive with ripe peaches, the fields were golden with wheat, and the air smelled of fresh soil mixed with the tang of smoke from the barn's fireplace. Life had settled into a rhythm, steady and unapologetic. Ethan had fully stepped up. He wasn't just helping anymore. He was thinking ahead, planning, fixing things before they broke. One evening, after a long day of pruning, planting, and fence mending, we sat on the porch with beers in hand. "Mom," Ethan said, watching the sky shift from pink to indigo, "I never thought work could feel like freedom. Like, I used to think freedom was cash in your pocket and a fancy car. Now I get it. Freedom is owning your life, owning your mistakes, owning your choices. That's what you showed me. I smiled, the wind ruffling my hair. Finally, the penny dropped. You can't borrow respect or integrity. You gotta earn that every day. And Ethan, you're starting to get it. We spent that night talking more than we had in years. Not about money or property, not about Linda or the past, but about life, hopes, and lessons that only hit when you've been burned enough times to see the truth. Mom, can I ask you something? Ethan's voice softened. Shint, do you ever regret it? Drawing the line with Dad, with Linda, losing me. I took a long sip of my beer, watching the stars poke through the night sky. Regret? Nah. Maybe the hurt too much sometimes, but I learned something important. Saying no doesn't make you a villain. Protecting yourself doesn't make you selfish. I lost people who didn't deserve me, but I kept myself. That's worth everything. And you stayed. You learned. You came back. That's what matters. Ethan nodded, like he finally understood the depth of that statement. The kid who once demanded everything without thinking was gone. He'd matured, quietly, through lessons life had forced on him. And the best part, he wasn't bitter. Not really. Just grounded. Linda had completely vanished from our lives. Rumors filtered through town every now and then. She'd moved out of state, battling illness, struggling to get by. I didn't care to dig deeper. Why? Because she wasn't part of my story anymore. My energy was precious, and she had no claim on it. The chapter was closed, and the ink was dry. Meanwhile, Ethan and I started getting serious about improvements. We repaired the barn entirely, installed a small irrigation system, and even built a little greenhouse where I could grow vegetables year-round. Ray and Joe still dropped by to help, but Ethan was leading the charge now, making decisions, handling problems, and actually enjoying it. One Saturday, as we unloaded crates of peaches, Ethan paused and looked at me. Mom, can I take a crack at selling some of these at the farmer's market? I think I can make it work. I raised an eyebrow. You mean go hustle in the city with a trunk full of peaches? He grinned. Exactly. Learn a little business the honest way. No shortcuts, no lies, just effort and people skills. I laughed. All right, kid, show me what you got. And that was the start of his small entrepreneurial journey. Weekends, Ethan drove into town with crates of peaches, sharing samples, talking to folks, building relationships. He learned negotiation, patience, and charm. Not the fake kind, but the kind that comes from honesty and integrity. People respected him because he respected himself. Something he'd never understood before Linda and the money chase had clouded everything. At night, we'd sit on the porch, recounting the day's adventures. Mom, you know what's wild? He said one night, brushing dirt off his hands. I feel like I'm building something that's actually mine. Not borrowed, not inherited, not manipulated. Mine. And it feels real. Good, I said. That's how it's supposed to feel. Nothing handed, nothing cheated. Earned with sweat, mistakes, and a little pride. That's the real victory. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were thriving, but not in the flashy Instagram way. Thriving in a way that made the heart calm, the mind steady, and the soul proud. And me? I had grown too. I was learning how to enjoy mornings with fresh coffee, afternoons watching Ethan handle responsibilities like a man, and evenings with the mountains glowing under the sunset. I no longer woke up expecting betrayal or heartbreak. I woke up expecting honesty, effort, and peace. And that's exactly what I got. I started reconnecting with the town too. Small chats at the store, casual visits to the church, even helping neighbors with small projects. My reputation had shifted from the hard, stubborn lady to someone people trusted, someone who had survived storms and still stood tall. Ethan noticed it too. "Mom, you've got this aura now. People can feel it. Respect, strength, wisdom." Scars turned into armor. I smirked. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just the ranch rubbing off on me. Hard work will toughen anyone's ass." He laughed, shaking his head. "Nah, it's more than that. You've built more than a ranch. You built a legacy." And that's exactly what it felt like. We weren't rich in dollars, but rich in lessons, respect, and connection. I had my land, my dignity, and my son who had finally found his own moral compass. That was wealth no one could steal. As the year closed, I realized something else. Life had become simple, honest, and fulfilling. There were no dramas, no schemes, no fake smiles. Just land, work, love, and lessons. And that was all I wanted. Linda, still gone, still alone, still a shadow. Ethan, present, accountable, learning, growing. Me, free, strong, steady, and finally at peace. And maybe that's what matters the most. Not revenge, not wealth, not approval from others, but knowing your worth, standing by it, and teaching the next generation how to do the same. Winter had rolled in quietly, but it didn't slow us down. The ranch was still alive, with chores, plans, and quiet victories. Snow dusted the orchard and the fields, creating this almost magical vibe that made everything feel clean, fresh, like a new start. I had learned to love these quiet mornings, the kind where the world seems paused, just long enough for you to catch your breath, sip a hot coffee, and feel grounded. Ethan had really grown into his role. He woke up early, did the hard labor, handled errands, and somehow still had energy to sit with me at night, sharing what he'd learned, what he'd messed up, and what he hoped to improve. He was no longer the kid who chased empty dreams or let anyone manipulate him. He was self-aware, humble, and starting to respect himself in a way that I hadn't seen before. One morning, he came running into the kitchen, breathless, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mom, guess what?" I raised an eyebrow while pouring coffee. "Slow down, dude. What's got you so hyped?" He slammed his boots on the floor, practically vibrating with energy. "The town council approved a local farmhouse co-op. They want us to join, give us a booth, advertise the ranch, connect with other small growers. Mom, this is huge. It's legit exposure. People will know our peaches, our honey, our land. This is the step up we needed." I grinned, feeling proud and slightly amazed. "Damn, Ethan, look at you, making moves. I'm impressed. But remember, no shortcuts, no cutting corners. You do it right or you don't do it at all." He laughed. "Yeah, Yeah, learned that the hard way. Promise, Mom. We spent weeks preparing for the co-op, sorting produce, labeling jars, setting up displays. Ethan learned marketing, negotiation, presentation. And you know what? He thrived. He wasn't doing it for fame or money. He was doing it for pride, for ownership, for proof that hard work and honesty could actually pay off. And honestly, that made me proud in ways money could never. Life, though, wasn't just about business. I'd learned to embrace my own peace, my own space. I wasn't alone in the lonely sense anymore. My home felt full, not with people constantly around, but with purpose, effort, and connection. People stopped judging me as the stubborn ranch lady and started respecting the woman who had weathered storms, fought off predators, and come out standing tall. Ethan and I had built a rhythm. Mornings in the fields, afternoons at the co-op or repairing something broken, evenings on the porch watching sunsets that looked like paintings spilled across the sky. And the silence, it wasn't empty anymore. It was warm, comfortable, peaceful. One December afternoon, we sat on the porch, the winter sun dipping low, the air crisp. Ethan sipped hot cocoa while I had my usual coffee. "Mom," he said, voice soft, "I've been thinking all this time." I felt like I had to live someone else's dream. Linda's, the city's, even my own messed up expectations. But now, watching this, living this, I get it. I get what real freedom feels like. I get why you fought so hard. I get why you said no, why you stood your ground. And I want to do the same. No shortcuts, no BS, just respect and honesty. I looked at him, feeling my chest swell with a mix of pride and relief. Damn straight, kid. You've got it now. That's the kind of life worth living. Our bond had shifted, matured. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. No resentment, no pretending. Just two people who survived mistakes, betrayal, and heartbreak, now learning to thrive on their own terms. Linda? Yeah, still gone. Still a shadow in the stories folks whispered. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. She wasn't part of the ranch, part of Ethan's growth, or part of my peace. Life had balanced itself out, as it always does. She had chosen her path, and we had chosen ours. And ours was full of dignity, hard work, and respect. Not fake smiles, lies, or manipulation. One evening, after the co-op's first winter market, Ethan and I drove back to the ranch. The sky was ablaze with color, streaks of orange, purple, and gold. I glanced at Ethan, sweaty and tired from hauling boxes and greeting folks. He looked at me, a grin plastered across his dirt-streaked face. ... You know, Mom, I get it now. I get why you never backed down. I get why you didn't let Linda mess with us, with this ranch. I get it all. I chuckled. Finally, the penny dropped, huh? He nodded, serious now. Yeah, and I don't ever want to forget it. I want to build a life like that, honest, grounded, respected. I want to honor this place, honor you, honor what you fought for. That night, I sat on the porch, alone, sipping coffee, while the ranch slept. It was quiet, peaceful, perfect. And I realized something huge. I had truly found my center. Life had taken away some things: money, peace with certain people, illusions, but it had given me way more. Freedom, dignity, respect, lessons that money couldn't buy. A son who was finally seeing the world clearly. A legacy that would survive me. I leaned back, letting the chill breeze brush my face, watching the stars blink to life, and I smiled. Life had finally caught up. It had balanced the scales, and I was standing tall, not just as a ranch owner, but as a woman who had survived storms, faced betrayal, and come out stronger than ever. Ethan came out to join me, holding 2 steaming mugs. We clinked them together quietly. To honesty, hard work, and surviving, I said. To surviving, he echoed. And for the first time in decades, I felt completely, unapologetically whole. The ranch was alive. Ethan was growing into a man I could be proud of. And me? I was finally living my life on my terms. No regrets, no wasted energy. Just peace, pride, and the satisfaction of knowing that boundaries, honesty, and self-respect were worth every fight, every tear, every lonely night. Life had shown me that being alone didn't mean being lonely. That defending yourself wasn't selfish. That love didn't require losing yourself. That the lessons were harsh, but the rewards, freedom, respect, dignity, were priceless. And as the night wrapped the ranch in soft shadows, I whispered to the stars, "We made it, Ethan. We really made it." He smiled, leaning back beside me, and I knew in that quiet moment everything that had hurt, everything that had been stolen or lost, was finally replaced with something better, something real. Spring rolled in, soft and slow, washing the ranch with that fresh, hopeful vibe that only new beginnings bring. I was out in the orchard one morning, pruning the peach trees, sun on my shoulders, birds singing like they knew something good was happening. Ethan was nearby, hauling crates of fertilizer and chatting with Ray about plans for planting a new vegetable patch. The ranch was alive, humming with purpose, and so were we. I paused for a second, letting my hands rest on the rough bark of the tree. I thought about everything: the chaos, the heartbreak, the fights, the loneliness, the lessons. Every tear, every fight, every sleepless night had led me here. Not broken, not bitter, not empty, but whole, strong, free. And for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Ethan came over, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Mom, you ever think about what it would have been like if we had just let things slide? If we had given in to Linda, all those fights, all those lawyer meetings?" I shook my head, smiling. "Nah, kid, that wouldn't have been life. That would have been surviving, not living. You know, sometimes saying no, standing your ground, it sucks. It's lonely. It's messy. But it's what keeps you whole." He nodded, thoughtfully. "Yeah, I get it now. I see it. You were right, all along." We walked down to the barn, passing the fields that had been our battleground. And later that afternoon, we took a break on the porch. Coffee in hand, we watched the sun dip behind the mountains, painting the sky like some wild watercolor streak. I sipped slowly, savoring the quiet. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but content. You know, Mom, I never told you this straight up, but I'm proud of you, he said. Not just for the ranch or the money or even surviving Linda, but for how you carried yourself, for never giving up on yourself, for showing me that strength isn't about being mean, it's about being true. My chest tightened a little, but it wasn't sadness, it was pride. Thanks, kid. That means more than you know. And you're on your way. You're figuring it out, learning the hard way, but doing it right. I'm proud of you too, always. Life wasn't perfect. Ethan still had debts to pay, and the ranch still demanded every ounce of energy. But now, the struggle felt different. It was honest. It was ours. And the best part? We weren't chasing illusions or other people's dreams. We were building ours, brick by brick. One afternoon, as I was walking through the orchard, I saw Michael approaching from the distance. His steps were steady. No swagger, no pretension. Just a man who had learned his lessons the hard way. I waved, and he smiled, a little shy, a little humbled. Hey, Mom, he said quietly. Mind if I sit? Pull up a chair, I said. We sat on the porch, coffee mugs steaming in our hands. The silence wasn't awkward. It wasn't tense. It was easy, comfortable. He looked at me with gratitude in his eyes. You know, Mom, I've messed up a lot, but seeing you, seeing what you built, seeing how you stayed true to yourself, it's been my guide. You saved me, really, not just from Linda, but from myself, from being greedy, selfish, blind. I see now, and I wanted to say thanks. I reached over, touching his hand lightly. You're welcome, Michael. But don't forget, you saved yourself too. You've got the chance to rebuild, honestly, without shortcuts. Don't waste it. We sat there, sipping coffee, watching the sun fade. And in that moment, I felt a sense of completion, closure. Life had come full circle. Michael was on his path. Ethan was thriving. And I was finally living my life fully, unapologetically, without compromise. The ranch thrived that year. We expanded the orchard, started a small farm stand in town, and even hosted a tiny local festival celebrating harvest. People came, saw the land, tasted our fruits, and learned the story of the woman who refused to give up. They respected it. They respected me. And for the first time in decades, I felt recognized not for what I had, but for who I was. I also learned that peace isn't about having everyone around you, nor is it about holding grudges or waiting for apologies. It's about knowing your worth, defending it, and living life on your terms. Ethan learned it too, and I hoped one day he'd pass it on, not as some lecture, but as lived truth. Winter came again, and then spring. Seasons changed, crops grew, and so did we. Life didn't stop being hard. It never does. But we had learned the value of patience, of grit, and of honesty. And the ranch, our little kingdom, stood as proof of all of it. One quiet evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, I poured a final cup of coffee and sat on the porch alone, letting the wind kiss my face. The sky reflected the journey, the struggles, the triumphs, the scars. And I whispered softly, just to myself, I made it. We made it. Life had taught me that defending yourself isn't selfish, loving yourself isn't cruel, and staying true to your values isn't weak. I had lost, I had fought, I had survived. And in the end, I had gained everything that truly mattered: respect, dignity, peace, and a legacy that no one could take away. Michael, Ethan, the ranch, they were all part of that story now. But most importantly, I was part of my own story. A story of survival, courage, and triumph. And as I watched the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the mountains, I felt it deep in my bones. I was Emily Brooks. I was 60 years old, and I had never... The ranch was mine. My name was mine. My peace was mine. And I intended to guard it forever. Life had tried to knock me down, but I had stood tall. And that, I realized, was everything.